top 5 most meaningful experiences in their entire lives. So that is just, to me, absolutely incredible, because so much happens to us in our lives. You know, we get married, we have children, we graduate from psychology programs, and to think that, you know, a drug experience ranks in the top 5 most salient experiences of your life, I think really allows us to get some insight in how meaningful this is for people. Okay. It's 8 o'clock. How are you all doing? You guys want to go on the whirlwind tour of the research before the break?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Let's do it. So let's first talk about psilocybin. This is the active ingredient in quote-unquote magic mushrooms. Chemically, it's 4-phosphoryloxy-NN-dimethyltryptamine. So again, you know, a lot of the times they think, oh man, mushrooms and DMT are way different, and it's like they're slightly different. They're all serotonin analogs. What is it? It's again a chemical compound found in mushrooms. There's over 200 species of psilocybin mushrooms worldwide. So compared to some others that are very specific to regions of the world, psilocybin mushrooms really kind of grow everywhere, which perhaps makes it a better candidate for clinical studies than something that is very heavily tied to one indigenous group's type of religion, because it seems a lot less like cultural appropriation, at least to me, to take something that grows all over the world in many different varieties than, you know, take something that essentially one culture has been using and then try to kind of translate it into a medicine. A lot of people think psilocybin is what's kind of running the bus with psychedelic mushrooms. It's actually psilocin. So when psilocybin mushrooms are ingested, they're metabolized to psilocin, and psilocin is probably the primary active psychedelic compound in psilocybin-containing mushrooms. So in the world of drugs, we call this a prodrug. It's a drug that's metabolized to something else that is then producing the effect that you're hoping for. In a global drug survey, psilocybin mushrooms were ranked the safest recreational drug. So I think this is also really nice when we're thinking about using profound mind-altering substances to know that, you know, beyond the type of psychological risks that we can control for with set and setting, we're not necessarily worried about harm to your kidneys, liver, heart, other organs of the body, things along that nature. You know, no one gets a life-threatening rash from taking psilocybin mushrooms, whereas, you know, plenty of other agents out there have those kind of risks to them. So as far as research with psilocybin, there's a few different indications that have been studied. Probably anxiety and depression in life-threatening illness is the one that has the most data at this point. There's been 3 randomized double-blinded trials that have looked at psilocybin for this indication, and it totals 101 people that have been enrolled in these 3 trials. They're not using psilocybin mushrooms, they're using pure psilocybin in this. So as far as a dose goes, they're probably using around 3 to 4 grams of dried mushroom would be the kind of conversion if you're going to you know, convert it to something like a dried psilocybin mushroom. Again, they're 2 to 3 sessions. They're spaced 4 to 7 weeks apart, and they're doing this preparation / integrative psychotherapy on a weekly basis in between. And you know, I think it would just be too much to go through all of the rating scales and the changes and things like that, but in drug trials, there's what we think of as statistical significance. So wow, you could find a difference in the averages, and you can find a very, very small difference if you enroll enough people, but really it's clinical significance that we care about. It's sort of like, you know, it doesn't matter if, oh, it helped. Drug helps 2 out of 1,000 people, placebo helps 1 out of 1,000 people. There's a statistically significant difference. Do we care about that so much? I don't know. It was a 1 in 1,000 shot, right? Versus something that, hey, you know, we treated 10 people with PTSD, and a year later, 7 of them did not meet diagnostic criteria for PTSD anymore. And they were refractory before they enrolled in the trial. So, you know, that's how kind of clinically meaningful these types of results are. There's several other pilot studies that have been done with psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. Alcohol use disorder, there's one of those. Smoking or tobacco cessation. Obsessive compulsive disorder, this was not a trial, it was a case series, but especially kind of in anecdotal forums on the internet, you do find people talking about psilocybin being helpful for obsessive or compulsive types of traits. It's interestingly, although kind of depression, anxiety, and life-threatening illness is the indication with the most data, it's treatment-resistant depression that the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration has recognized at this point as being a potential breakthrough. So you're going to see more studies of psilocybin specifically for treatment-resistant depression. Okay, MDMA. So this one is 3,4-methylenedioxymethamphetamine. So again, it's a psychostimulant kind of backbone, and then this methylene-deoxy portion of it gives it serotonergic activity, whereas standard amphetamines have very little serotonergic activity to them at all. So you can kind of think of it as a serotonergic psychostimulant / psychedelic. Oh, kind of stole my thunder on the first bullet point there. So they're interesting in that typically with something like MDMA, you don't necessarily have this fully ego-dissoluting type of experience. And this might be because of the kind of stimulant effects to it. And stimulants are more, they're associated with a sense of confidence, an inflated sense of self-esteem. So they're like stimulants are more ego-inflating types of drugs. Seems like tryptamine psychedelics are very ego-dissolving types of drugs, whereas MDMA is kind of sitting somewhere in between there, where the person is still very aware of who they are and what's going on, yet they have this kind of emotional plasticity to them. So it kind of lacks the sorts of characteristic intense perceptual distortions that you can get with high doses of LSD or something like DMT. Oftentimes you hear it called an empathogen or an enactogen. This is the ability to kind of connect with other people, and certainly in a kind of nightlife type of scene, MDMA is very commonly used as far as connecting with other people. It'll be very interesting to see kind of how MDMA-assisted psychotherapy evolves, because I think a lot of people are very interested in kind of couples therapy with MDMA, in that it could be an extremely useful tool to kind of work out long-standing problems or interpersonal difficulties with couples. Colloquially known as a heart medicine or heart opener, and this one has been fast-tracked by the FDA for the indication of post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's kind of positioned to be the first psychedelic to be medically legalized, and we'll see how phase 3 goes. Phase 2 looked amazing. If a drug's going to fail, most often the times it fails in phase 3, but I think that the fact that our regulatory agency in the United States has given it a breakthrough designation really bodes fairly well for it. So there's been 6 phase 2 trials that have been published at this point, totaling 103 subjects. There's been a variety of different traumas that they've studied, so sexual assault, military traumas, occupational trauma, so things like police officers or firefighters, and kind of more